I was going to ask, what is the most important thing that Bill said in that whole thing? And unfortunately, he covered it in the very last little bit before he got into his oil thing. And that is, when you are partial panel, do one thing at a time, okay? Hey, I can turn, but I can't descend, okay? I can descend, but I can't turn. One thing at a time. So what do you think happened to Kennedy? Of course, he had a full panel. He wasn't an instrument-rated pilot, even though he was working on his instrument rating. And if he had been smart enough to just turn the autopilot on in that airplane, because it had an autopilot, he'd be around today, and his wife and his sister-in-law. But the bottom line is, whoever asked, it is normally a death spiral that you get into when you're partial panel, because you have no reference to pitch. Okay, and guess what? When we turn the airplane loses lift. When the airplane loses lift, it requires back pressure to maintain level flight, and so the airplane starts a descent. Guess what? We pull back on a little bit of yoke, to get that VBI, because I don't have a pitch attitude. I'm relying on altimeter and VBI for pitch now, and airspeed's increasing. Those three instruments right there give me pitch, okay? And this little turn and slip indicator gives me, obviously, wings level. But those are the three instruments now that tell me pitch. And you trying to interpolate all that information, for pitch. I did a partial panel. I was doing an IPC with Tom the other day. I made him fly the Bonanza, since Bill and I let him fly our Bonanza. And of course, that's a fast airplane. You get the nose down just a little bit. And the airspeed goes up like that. Well, so I did a partial panel unusual attitude recovery with him. And if it would have been a real airplane, he'd have ripped the wings off in the recovery. Because, we were at V&E, basically he had the airspeed pegged, and so now he's trying to roll wings level, and the turn and slip indicator is going beep, 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 back and forth. So he's doing this, back and forth trying to get it, and then trying to recover, to get the VVI was pegged at, 2,000 feet a minute. So who knows how fast we were actually descending in that. But he would have probably over-G'd the airplane if it would have been in a real airplane. But the key, obviously, is to be methodical. Just like all of you who are instrument students who I've flown with, and private pilot students, that when we've gone out and done instrument training, where I've said, a constant airspeed climb and descent are a known value. If I'm flying along at 90 knots, okay, or 100 knots in the 172, and I'm at 2,300 RPM, and I'm a VFR pilot, and I have been, I know that it's VFR above. If I do nothing more than push the power up, the airplane was trimmed for 100 knots, and I push the power up, the airplane's going to start to climb all by itself. It might not climb fast, but as opposed to you having to pull to change the pitch attitude of the airplane, we may only climb at 200 feet a minute, but I have done nothing but just push the power up, okay? And the airplane should still fly in trim flight, hands off. Same token, if I'm flying along at 100 knots and at 2,300 RPM, and I know that it's VFR below, if I pull it to 2,000 RPM, I know that it's going to start a trim descent, maintain 100 knots, because that's what I had it trimmed for in level flight. I pull back a couple hundred RPM, it's going to start a descent, and it's going to maintain 100 knots within about 10 knots, and start a nice constant airspeed descent, and get me below the weather. I'm not having to make a whole bunch of changes. But the bottom line is, in partial panel stuff especially, one thing at a time. Do one thing at a time. Anyway. All right, what's the primary reason why most of those guys didn't recognize, obviously, that they had a vacuum pump failure in the test study that Bill was talking about? It's because of their stand. What do? We focus on that stupid little attitude indicator that gives us everything we need to know. Level flight and bank, okay? So pitch and roll. And that's all we reference on. And when I take students for the very first time and we talk about the six-pack, all the instruments, It's looking at that and then validating that thing that it's telling me that I'm in level flight. If I'm in level flight, I should come over here and my altimeter says is not moving. If I'm in level flight, I should come down here and my VBI is reading 0. If I'm in level flight, my airspeed should be constant. If I'm in level flight, that turn and slip indicator should show wings level. Okay? If I'm in level flight, that DG shouldn't be moving. So it's their scan, and we focus on that all the time. And so that, again, it's paramount that you develop a scan pattern that is constantly validating your primary instruments that you use for pitch and roll. And so that's what those other instruments are. Anyway, all right. I think I'm done with that. I'm going to talk about just a few things that, and it's over with. As